Samuel Little, known as America's most prolific serial killer, confessed to killing 93 people over 3 decades. His victims were vulnerable women, and their disappearances often went unnoticed. Born on June 7, 1940, in Georgia, USA, Little's mother was reportedly a sex worker, and he claimed he was born inside a prison. He endured a difficult childhood filled with violence and neglect, which may have shaped his criminal tendencies. In his youth, Little moved across various states in the U.S., taking on temporary jobs, including boxing. This skill gave him significant physical strength, which he later used to overpower and strangle his victims to death. Little's killing spree began in the early 1970s. He targeted women from marginalized groups, such as sex workers and drug addicts, because they were less likely to be missed or reported when they disappeared. He would lure his victims into his car or isolated locations before strangling them to death. Little chose strangulation because it made it harder for forensic experts to determine the cause of death. Over 35 years, Little committed his murders across multiple states, including California, Texas, Florida, and others. He relied on his boxing skills to overpower his victims. He often disposed of their bodies in locations where they were unlikely to be found, such as forests and remote areas. Years later, Little admitted he carefully selected his victims, believing the police would not prioritize investigating their cases. Despite his lengthy criminal record, Little managed to evade justice for decades. He was arrested several times for minor offenses, but no connection was made to the murders until 2012. In 2012, Little was arrested in Kentucky on drug charges and extradited to California, where DNA evidence linked him to 3 cold case murders from 1987 to 1989. In 2014, he was convicted and sentenced to 3 life terms without the possibility of parole. In 2018, Little began cooperating with the FBI, confessing to murdering 93 people between 1970 and 2005. His confessions were detailed and chilling, as he recalled victims' names and the locations of their murders. He even created detailed sketches of his victims, which helped law enforcement identify some of them. To date, authorities have confirmed the accuracy of at least 50 of his confessions. Little showed no remorse for his victims. He claimed he enjoyed every murder he committed. He viewed killing women as a sport. His cold and calculated demeanor continues to be studied in the field of criminal psychology. Samuel Little died on December 30th, 2020, at the age of 80, while serving his life sentences in prison. Even after his death, his case remains one of the most chilling examples of serial killings in modern history. Samuel Little's story is not just about a man who killed without conscience. It's also a story of systemic failure. How did he evade justice for decades? And why were his victims ignored?